Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolford. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together.
Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast, and I am coming to you from Charlottesville, Virginia with, as I always say, a very special episode, because this episode is with none other than Phebe Higgins of Felt the Food. I am so excited to talk with Phebe today because I just feel like it sometimes needs to be said that Black people love cute stuff too. We do. We do. When I tell you how much I love miniatures, like dollhouse miniatures, Barbie furniture, all of these kind of things, I love these. And felted food is one of the most cute and endearing and I think just wonderful projects. And to have Phebe Higgins here with us today, and Phebe, who has innovated, I believe, in the field of felt fooding. And so welcome our felt foodie, Phebe Higgins. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about felt food and my journey and how other people can join right in and start today into their journey.
Absolutely. I am delighted about this as well. So Phebe, can you get us started with your sewing story? What is your sewing story? How did sewing impact your life, development, recreational habits? How did sewing become part of your story?
So I am new to sewing. I feel like it's in my bones though. I feel like it's just in me. My grandmother could make anything and everything. She'd been sewing since she was like 12 years old. She had 9 kids, so she made all their clothes, but I never picked any of that up. My mom never taught me any of that. And it wasn't until I needed to learn that all of a sudden I just started sewing just a little under a year ago. And now I can't stop. Now my stitches are fantastic. When you're a beginner, you make some of the beginner mistakes, which I always account for whenever I'm making kits. But I now teach other beginners how to start their felt food journey and jump right into sewing, because I think there is this connotation that if you didn't learn to sew when you were young and a teenager, maybe in home economics, which is dating me a little bit, if you didn't learn it then you can't learn it as an adult. It's just like a new skill. But that's not true. It's a new skill that you can learn right now.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to have a lot of time, 25 minutes a day, 25, 30 minutes a day. And that can get you started on learning how to sew. And I break my stitches down very, very easily for you to see exactly how I sew, why I'm doing things, and where people might make mistakes. So I show you and I'm like, oh, this is what you might do. And this is how I'm going to tell you how to avoid this.
One of the things I appreciate about this, and let me make this a distinction, y'all. This is something I wasn't clear about. All of the sewing she is talking about now is hand sewing. This is hand sewing. I was thinking about calling the episode Felt the Food with Phebe Higgins, but it should also be something about like hand sewing magic with Phebe Higgins. Because when she talks about my stitches are really great now, it takes some people about a year to feel confident and comfortable getting a straight line on a sewing machine. You are making straight stitches, hem stitches, blanket stitches. You are doing these types of stitches by hand.
Yeah.
And telling other folks how to do it too. It is extraordinary. Tell us about how you came up with the idea of felted food as something you wanted to create.
So my son was about 18 months old, and we were going to lots of different types of play centers, and they were horrible experiences. He was leaving. I mean, he was crying and screaming. I was leaving crying and screaming.
Oh my gosh.
And we went to a different type of play center, almost like a Montessori based play center, a lot bigger, less overwhelming with toys and things that were loud and buzzed and made sounds. And instantly he moved over to this play kitchen. Now, the reason why I was taking my son to different play centers is because I think what happened is I had my son in 2021, and I think a lot of moms can kind of who had their babies around that time can kind of say, yeah, I get where she's coming from. There was a level of isolation that children had
Yes.
during that time that they hadn't had previously. Some people are saying that there are some different delays, particularly with speech, when there isn't another sibling in the home. So I wanted my son to be able to be around other kiddos, to pick up that language, to begin having some of those natural like baby conversations, right?
Yes.
And when I saw that he loved the kitchen, I said, oh, let me see if I can combine his love of kitchen play with functional play with speech development. So that's kind of how I started to move into this. I
Mm.
said, I wonder if I could give him a play kitchen at home. So this is a resource that we have every single day. And
Yes.
then begin to build his words, just like I'm using the pancakes. They're like building blocks, but it's a pancake. So it started to click probably about 3 weeks in, the first time my son said strawberry. He never had a strawberry. He never said the word strawberry, but I kept reiterating, this is a strawberry. This is a, this is a strawberry. This is a strawberry. And then
Oh my
I was
gosh.
on live one day and he picked it up and he said, Mama, strawberry. And it was the first 2-word sentence that he said, and the first time he'd ever said the word strawberry. And I remember being on live being like, this is what I'm talking about. This is now, I can use this as a tool for functional play. So it doesn't feel like a lesson or an assignment. It feels like he's just having fun and I'm just calling out the name of everything over and over and over. And then we start to do things that build the words even more. For example, present progressive. If you're, into like the speech therapy world, I made a peelable banana because I could say peeling banana, because we learn nouns first when we're learning word development. That's how
Yes.
mama, dada, car. We're learning the nouns first. Then to add the ing words on,
Mm-hmm.
peeling or cutting, you take
Yes.
cutting, so all of the things. So that has really helped my son with word development. And like I said, once I started, it was like a roller coaster. I couldn't stop.
It's it's really spectacular. And let me ask you, Phoebe, do you have experience in graduate education? I would love to know how
Yeah.
you developed this vocabulary that sounds very discipline specific to an academic field. Tell me a bit about your background and how this has led to or contributed to your sewing felt food.
So a little bit of a curved pathway, because I went to school for music and psychology and I wanted to do music therapy. My internship
Mm,
was in an elementary school setting, and that's where I first learned about early intervention.
yes.
Believe it or not, I took a totally different pathway. I said, "Oh gosh, um, I don't know if this is my field." It came back 20 plus years later when I became a
Wow.
mom, and then I just started connecting with other speech therapists and saying, you know, how can I take this and turn this into early at-home intervention? I was a very worried parent. I was my son was 18 months old. I'm like, are the words coming? No one was worried. And my doctor, his pediatrician, kept saying, Phoebe, it's fine. Just wait. We'll wait till 2 years. But I wanted to kind of do something. I
Yes.
didn't want to go stir crazy. I said, I have some time to really focus on this. So let me
Yes.
focus on this. I went to every single free speech therapist event at any play center that there was, and I got right in front of them. I talked about felt food. I said,
Wow.
is what I'm doing functional play? Absolutely. This is functional play. And then they said, you might want to take some of the stuff that you're doing with felt food and transition it into the real world. So can you incorporate one day a week where you're cooking? And then my son began to say, Mama cooking, Mama I cook, Mama I want to cook.
Wow.
So I've watched my son go from one word only sentences to 2-word to 3-word to 4-word, almost 5 words.
Wow.
And he's not 3 yet. And of course the words are gonna, the words keep coming, but this was something that was really important to me. And one of the speech therapists said to me, she said, one of the first things that, when we go to a client's home that's looking for early intervention, we ask the parents, are you doing any functional play? We look for things like a play kitchen,
Mm.
a play sink, play dress up, play any sort of thing that could be functional play that could help draw some of those words out in a very calming, play-like setting. Because if it feels
Mm.
like play, they want to do it. If it feels like learning, you don't want to do it so much. Because I had flashcards. They were like, he's too young
They're
for
like, they're like,
flashcards.
calm down, ma'am.
Exactly.
Ma'am,
Exactly.
step away from the flashcards, ma'am.
You've got to meet them where they're at. And if my son was if he could have been interested in anything else and I would have jumped right on that, but he happened to really be interested in this kitchen. And then it became the thing whenever I was going on play dates, I would ask new friends, do you have any functional play in your house? And they would say, oh, what do you mean? Do you have a play kitchen? Do you have this? It's going to kind of tell me whether my son's going to go over there and he's going to be like excited and wanting to play with all these new things. Because a lot of kids, they might not necessarily know how to play with a little truck, or they might not know how to play with something that has lots of gadgets, but less can be more in terms of play.
I'm really appreciating the distinction you're making here about functional play. Can you define for us what functional play is?
Yeah, functional play is anything that we are doing that transition into the real world. So let's say you're doing something where it's whether it's kitchen, whether it's sink and you're washing your hands, whether it's you've got the mop and the broom, you're doing cleaning play. All of that can be functional play because it's something that you're teaching them a skill that they're going to use in the near future. And they're watching you do it. They're absorbing it like a sponge. So he's already watching me in the kitchen, cutting everything, putting it into the pot, stirring it, mixing
Yes.
it, flipping it. So
Yes.
any of those things can be considered functional play. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you've got a Swiffer, take the top thing off and make it short. Let them walk around
Yes.
and mop. That could be considered functional play. You're cleaning, mama cleaning.
Yes. And what I like about it as well is that it kind of allows them to imagine themselves in the roles that we have.
Exactly.
Like, like they think washing the dishes is fun. We think of it as a chore. We think of it as no, seriously. They're like,
Yeah.
there's bubbles in there and there's plates and you could scrub them and then you can
Yeah.
rinse them again, like in this waterfall. Like,
Exactly. Like water play, like having a water table. That could be
yes.
functional play. There's outdoor mud kitchens. That could be
Yes.
functional, where they put rocks in bowls and they pretend that
Yes.
they're making a cake.
Yes.
It's something that's so simple. And it's our everyday life and we don't even look at it as play.
I like also how you identified, as a lot of parents, I believe, in the COVID era of having children, that this was a new situation.
Mm-hmm.
That, they talk about that quote unquote, these COVID babies are different, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you identified this new situation and illustrate the idea that sometimes that new situations require creative solutions.
Exactly.
And the creative solution you came up with was something that's also kind of ancient,
Yes.
sewing. It makes me also wonder, how does the process for you of stitching the felt food contribute to what it means for your son's development? Do you understand what I'm asking? Like, you sitting down, holding the needle and thread, you being the one to do it, rather than buying this device or going to an educational website and saying, they have the toys for creative play. I will buy them rather than make them. There's something, I just wanted to hear more about your thoughts on the making and having that be something you stitch with your hands.
I think there's just something so special about knowing that, yes, I could go out and I could buy all of these things, but there's something special about knowing mama made this. And I think I come from I'm an older millennial and I come from a boomer. So I come from the mama who said, mama can make that. You want a happy meal, baby? Mama can make you a happy meal at home. So there is something
Girl, we got my mother did not let us have when chicken McNuggets first came out. I remember when they first came out because I'm not a millennial in any way. I am older. But I remember when chicken nuggets first came out, my mother refused to let us have chicken nuggets because she was like, we're going to go home and have wool fork nuggets. And I was like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I don't want mama nuggets. I don't want mama made. It's like, you want to, exactly. I'll make you a happy meal right here. Here is a burger.
And it always looked like a sad meal because it wasn't like regular bread and the grease was coming through. And instead of the onions being a little onion, like the dried, it was like real onions. Like, So we used to call in my house a sad meal. I don't want the sad meal. So I
Girl,
think that
we
there
lived
is,
in the same house. I'm telling you, because we had so many sad meals. And
so
you better get happy.
exactly. I'm like, this is a sad meal. I want it. So this pride of knowing that I'm making it for my son, but I feel like I'm an integral part of his play. So it
Yes.
feels just a little more special. And then to see other people come over and love playing with it just as much and say, oh, where did you buy it? And say, everything here I've made. You made this. Oh my gosh, you've been sewing. No. I've been sewing for 4 months. I've been sewing for 2 months. I've been sewing for it'll be a year, February 17th. So it'll be 1 year that I've been sewing, and I've made over
Wow.
hundreds of things for my son.
Yes. And talk a bit about your experience when you find the time to sit down, thread one needle, or maybe you thread 5 needles. Tell me about that time for you. What is that like when you make your first stitch? Can you walk us through that for you?
For me, my time is when my son naps. So he still has an afternoon nap. I know some people say, oh, that typically falls off. In my house, it fell off at 18. We're going to always have a nap. Even if you are not sleeping, you need to take 1 hour and 20 minutes to rest. No
Yes.
devices, no anything, just rest. But my son does go to sleep. So I usually have to prepare, like I have to think to myself, what do I want to sew? And I start getting that ready so that during nap time, that's when I'm working on that project. And an hour and a half is a lot of time. It's a lot more
Mm.
time than you think, because even if you've taken 5 minutes to do your quilter's knot and to get your thread ready and you've divided it, that's a jump start that you have into working on that project. So I take
Mhm.
that time. And then after my son goes to bed, when my husband gets home, we do kind of a tag shift, right? He takes the dogs out, he does all that, we have dinner, and then it becomes mommy's time. And then during that time, if I want to take some time to read a book or to sew, that's my time. That's
Yes.
my break time. So I can incorporate that in. So it's a nice I feel like I have a really nice balance. I never feel like I have to sew all day and I'm not present, because the point is to be present, but to bring back something, like you said, that is on the ancient side, hand sewing. All this could be done by a machine quickly. I don't have a sewing machine, nor do I know how to use a sewing machine. I've never used one. So all I know is hand sewing. And I feel like I want to bring that zest back, that excitement back to hand sewing. And I've sold over 400 kits. So people are loving it. They're loving it. They're loving just watching me sew once a week. That's something that people also have a lot of excitement about.
Yes. And that's the thing about, like, when you are sitting down and you are about to do your last blanket stitch, or, when you are about to, you've threaded, how many needles do you thread at once to work on something?
Usually two.
I guess I would just love to hear for you. You've got your 1 hour and 20 minutes. Like, this is Phoebe time. This is mommy time.
Yeah.
I got my 2 needles threaded. I got my felt pieces. And now I'm ready to make a scone.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that process. What is that excitement like for you? Because you've clearly been able to share that with so many people. Over 20,000 followers on TikTok, people who are in the thousands watching you and getting a sense of the way that you're feeling about it. I would love to hear about, like, when you make that first stitch and you start to round that corner, or the beautiful frosting on the
Oh,
on the talk.
excitement. It's
Tell me, girl, talk about it.
so there's so much excitement, because I think the first thing is whenever I'm designing a pattern, I'm seeing the pattern in a 3D way. And then I'm putting the pieces together in a flat way, like a one-dimensional way. And then I'm putting it together in a 3D way. So the first time I'm making it, I always say everything that gets made 3 times. And the reason why is the first time it's the prototype. I have to see, where is the pattern short somewhere? Did I leave enough allowance? For a beginner, they overstitch, over tighten the thread, so I have to allot that it's going to shift or move a little bit.
Yes.
Um, and then if it's fantastic the first time, I sew it again the second time on live, and I say, hey, here are some tips as you're sewing it so that you get this right. And then the
Yes.
third time, I sew it for a video. So there's a lot of excitement when it starts to come together. And I always say this is my favorite part of making this, because as soon as I'm like at the halfway part and I'm getting ready to stuff it, that's where I can't sew fast enough. That's where, if I'm going to mess up my stitches, that's where they're going to mess up, because I just want to finish it quickly. because I want to see, like when I was making this banana, I just wanted to see it come together.
Yes.
And I did this. This was the prototype. This was the first one, and I loved it. And I said, "This is the one. This is perfect." I could have done it by 4, but I decided by 3 just seems cute, and it seems like how you would peel a banana, and then having to make sure that there was enough. I mean, you can't see this, but the stitching is just.
I can see it. It's invisible, but like the way that it creates the ridge for the banana. Like, I have to tell you, I know you didn't know this, but longtime followers of the Stitch Please podcast and of Black Women Stitch will know that I have a hate relationship with bananas. I absolutely
Get
hate
out of
them.
here.
No, don't you dare. Don't you dare. The thing is, I hate bananas, but I love banana flavoring. So I love banana now and laters, banana Laffy Taffy, those liquid water-based 25-cent banana twin pops that are in store brands. I like banana, anything that's artificially banana flavored, but the real banana I think is horrible.
I agree. And it's so weird because even though I loved making this for my son, neither of us like bananas, but he loves to peel them.
Exactly.
He loves to peel it. So it's I figure because I have sliced banana slices, to have the whole banana, it seems like it was just fitting. I felt like there are places wherever I've made the sliced fruit, I want to make the whole, or I go back and I'm like, oh, I have the strawberry. Now I have to make the slices.
You could make them another one when you make fried plantains.
Oh, now we love plantains. That's something we love.
Or like those I love plantain chips too. So like if you made like the chips, or the banana chips, or however I love this. I love your slice. I love, of course, your banana has slices because
of course it does. Of course.
Hey friends, hey, I know you're enjoying the audio version of Stitch Please, and thanks so much for listening. But you're missing out on all the great stuff going on behind the scenes. That's why I'm inviting you to join our Black Women Stitch Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can see all the video versions of the podcast. Plus, you get some amazing swatch cards. You know how much I love these swatch cards. Look, see how cool these are? Oh wait, you can't see them because you are not yet on the Patreon. So when you join the Patreon, you'll be able to see this, me showing you these amazing cards. We also have some great perks at the other tiers, like discounts, swag, office hours, and more. Don't be the last sewist in the group now. Head over to patreon.com/blackwomenstitch or click the link in the show notes and become a Patreon supporter today. We truly cannot do this without you. So thank you so much. I wondered if we could talk a little bit about materials. What is it about felt? And what kind of felt are you using? Is this wool felt, polyester felt? What kind of felt do you encourage people to use? Or what kind of, without giving away too much of your intellectual property, how did felt become the thing that it would be?
I think there's just something about there's something about working with felt that just feels really cool. I prefer to use polyester, and I think you're going to find that makers are on either side of the coin. Some will swear by wool, and I have my certain reasons, and I'll tell you why I use polyester. It's washable over wool, which is not. I have a toddler, and I have to think about my lifestyle. Well, are these going to last 50 years? Maybe not. Am I okay with it? Absolutely. But I have toddlers that come into my house. We do play dates. So if they've got the sick, I've got to be able to put this in the wash.
Not the sick.
If they've got the sick, that's what we call it in my house. Oh, they've got the sick. And as soon as they leave, I'm like, oh, I got to wash things. So it's just a fact of it being washable. It just being a material that's just a little bit more durable. And I love wool. I love wool for the different variety, because there's so many colors when it comes to wool. And that's what I'm jealous of that you don't have with polyester, is the color. The other thing is, because I am machine cutting, Machine cutting, meaning I use a Cricut machine to cut.
Yes.
The thickness of the felt is so important.
I
Wool is going to
see.
be a bit too thick.
Yes, I understand. These are great reasons. And I think in terms of the durability, I believe they're going to be durable. I have had my own felt food experience. One year, I made an entire Christmas dinner for my very young nephew, who this might have been 10 years ago, who has since had twin sisters who has also
Oh,
played
wow.
with it. So I made a turkey where the legs could come off and the wings could come off. I made a sweet potato. I made there was some kind of green vegetable, but it was really an adorable little set. And fast forward 10 years later, the limbs of the turkey have flown away to their own reward, but the body of the turkey is still there and it's still around. And so polyester does tend to last a long time, which is why we don't want it in our landfills.
Mhm.
And that's one of the another great reason that these toys that you're creating, these functional play objects, are also durable and can be washed and can be passed on to another set of children,
Exactly.
where the turkey becomes, it's time to make your own limbs for it, children. That's the project now. So that, but that it will last, that it will last. How do you get your ideas? How do you decide what food is going to be felted?
The grocery store. I take my son to the grocery store as an activity. One, I have to do it. Two, I'm going to make it fun. So we spend
Yes.
a lot of time in the produce section. We spend a lot of time in the deli section. And if there's anything that he seems to kind of get excited about, I'm like,
Mm.
oh, like, one day he was really excited about avocado. So I said, oh, let's make avocado toast with a sunny side up egg. Let me show him how to
Oh,
do something a little different with this. So I try and make some of the foods a bit on the recipe based side. That way we can follow. I'll show you what I'm talking about. That
yes.
way we can follow this is an apple pie recipe.
I love the pie and you all, if you're not on Patreon, join the Patreon. We're in the middle of a Patreon drive. Join the Patreon. But can you show the card
Oh,
again?
yeah.
This is an apple pie with cinnamon sticks. The apple pie base has the apple slices in it, and it's a lattice topped pie crust, which
Mhm.
means that you can take out those fruits, the apples or whatever, and stitch some strawberry slices or banana slices and just
So
I
the
mean,
recipes keep evolving. It could be an apple pie, it could be a banana cream pie, could be a strawberry cream pie, could be, and I do these cards. The
yes.
directions help you with that early intervention play. So following the directions it kind of reiterates that play. So if you wanted to have a little guide, here's your guide. It's just as a recipe card.
Oh, I love that. I love that in addition to including instructions for the person, the adult probably, or maybe a teen who will be sewing it themselves, you also include as part of basically you are helping to dream this toy into
Exactly.
existence for this family,
Exactly.
right? And it's like, okay, don't get intimidated because I know you can do it. And here's the recipe card that you're going to give to your child
And they
to
thought
prove it.
exactly. And you read the recipe card and you say, so I'll give you just I'll read this one. This
Yes.
is for the holiday dinner kit. I say, listen for the pretend timer. We're listening for the pretend timer. Remove all baked items and begin plating on your tiny chef's dinner plate. So we're going to cut the legs and the wings, and we're going to put this on a plate. We're
Oh,
going to get the green beans on there. And then it says, demonstrate how to remove legs or wings with a play utensil.
yes.
Cutting.
Yes.
Finish by adding all dinner sides. Don't forget to plate the dessert because you have that,
The sweet potato pie.
yeah, with the whipped olive. And then it says,
Oh,
enjoy this dinner and dessert with a yummy glass of felt water, milk, or juice of your choice. Enjoy.
oh,
It just makes that element of play just this is something you can play together with your little one. So I mean, I'm sure, we've all been in a playroom before with a little one where
yes.
they're doing this but this is helping you set the table, sit at the table, pretend eat, and then you could take it further. Clean up, wash the dishes, put away.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just it's such a fun It's such a fun way to play. And I came up with these because when I was a kid, my mom was a part of the Betty Crocker Cookbook Club. And if you had a mom that was in there, she got once a month, they got these recipe cards. I don't know if you remember this because this is a long time ago.
I'm sure I remember. I'm sure we're about the same age. I think I'm a bit older, but I recall.
So my mom was in this club. A couple of her friends were too, and she would get these cards, and she would open all the cards really quickly, and she would go through and figure out what recipe she wanted to make for her friends, and they would all get together, and they would make something from the Betty Crocker Cookbook card, and it brought such joy to my mom. And I remember my mom she had this little, and she had by the end, she had hundreds of recipes in there. I mean, everything from appetizers, salads, main entrees, desserts, drinks, all the stuff, right? And it brought her such joy. When people would come over, she would flip through her cards and like, what should we make? So I imagine that this is how you'll collect your recipe cards for because you're making your own Felt the Food. So it says you're making your own cookbook.
That's
kind of
right.
Like that Betty Crocker.
What a beautiful idea. And I really appreciate the way that you brought that memory forward so that we could all participate in it.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that. I'm going to ask you our final question. The question we ask all the guests on the Stitch Please podcast, the slogan of the Stitch Please podcast is that we will help you get your stitch together. Phebe Higgins of Felt the Food. What advice would you give our listeners today to help us get our stitch together?
Don't be afraid to start. I think that's the best thing I can say is start today. Anything that I thought would be intimidating as a beginner, I tried to take on that responsibility. I think the hardest thing is like, oh, the patterns. Where do I get the patterns? What do I do this? And I have to cut it out, and then I have to find it, then find the thread, and find the. You can just jump right into, the kit has all of the cut pieces. It's ready to go. You just follow the directions. Don't be afraid to jump right into something and skip all of the hard steps. I know sometimes we enjoy that, but I think if this business were around when I started, I would have jumped right in, right over. Just follow a video and that's it. So don't be afraid to begin this new craft. Don't be afraid to get excited about it. And I think you're going to be so impressed with your first piece and your second piece. And then, I have a lot of people that I've watched them since I launched. I launched in May. Once I launched in May, I've watched them from May until now. I've seen their first pieces, their strawberries and their bananas. And I got to see their turkeys, like making this kind of kit, this kind of, and it's phenomenal. You can't tell me that they're not a professional sewer right now.
Wow.
So this is not a skill that you can't learn because you're an adult. You can learn it right now.
That's so correct. Absolutely. Phebe Higgins, thank you so much for being with us. Before we go, tell us where we can find you. We're going to put all this stuff in the show notes, but tell us where we can find you.
You can find me at feltthefood.com, and I'm Felt the Food everywhere. TikTok, social media, YouTube. I have some, like I said, great beginner videos to get you started.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful I got a chance to chat with you and your audience.
You've been listening to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you joining us this week and every week for stories that center Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. We invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon community with giving levels beginning at $5 a month. Your contributions help us bring the Stitch Please podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support, and come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.